I pray that every word spoken by me this morning be Spirit-led. And if not Spirit-led, then not heard. And if heard, then forgotten. And if not forgotten, then forgiven. Amen. The parable of the 5 wise and the 5 foolish bridesmaids, as it's found in Matthew. You just heard it. As I've lived with this parable in a focused way in prep for this morning over the past few weeks, it seems increasingly clear to me that this parable, although it's announced as a parable of the kingdom of heaven, falls short of containing a full picture of what the kingdom is. I suggest that it makes a very specific point and not much more beyond that. Much more could be said and was said about what the kingdom of heaven was like. It's a specific story intended to alert the listener to the need for attentiveness. I wondered with you, Audrey, the store still open at midnight? And the response to the wise ones, to the bridesmaids who knocked at the door, granted they were late, but they now had oil. And they were met with, no, I'm not going to open the door, I don't know you. Really? Before we go on and look at what some other stories might be like, let me reiterate what I think this parable is meant to teach us. Be prepared. Always remain attentive, vigilant, focused. Be woke. Take inventory of your resources. You never know when your full resources will be required of you. Sometimes all at once. Don't let the surprises of life surprise you. Don't assume others will help you out. That's kind of a tough one. And thanks be to God that we get to be a part of a community in which we, to some degree at least, are assured that others will help us out. But still, the point is an important one. And know that the time is coming when time's out. Some additional yet incomplete but interesting musings, at least to me. The wise bridesmaids aren't called good, and the foolish ones aren't called bad. Seems to me the wise ones weren't being very good. Certainly not very nice. Instead, they were behaving in a self-serving and kind of a heartless manner. They displayed no readiness to be responsive to the needs of the others. Surely they too had messed up at some point, maybe even forgotten their own extra supply of oil. But here they are, matter-of-factly dismissive of the needs of the 5 who hadn't brought enough oil or any reserve oil. I find it sad, a sad story, and yet a true story about the kingdom of heaven, a parable. What about the "you can't come in" response to the 5 bridesmaids? Their lamps were now lit. They had oil. They were eager to join the wedding feast. "Sorry, I don't know you," was the response. Really? I don't know you? As I said, the plain point of this story, it seems to me, is not to emulate the wise bridesmaids, who, as I've said, were self-centered, selfish, unwilling to share. If anything, it seems to me we ought to emulate the foolish, quote unquote, foolish bridesmaids. Remember, God chose the foolish, not the wise. How about if we emulate the foolish bridesmaids who, when they became aware of the trouble they were in, they did everything they could to rectify the situation? Simple point of the story is stay awake, stay alert, stay informed, stay aware, take inventory of your resources. You never know when anything and everything will be required of you. The parable ends, stay awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. The traditional understanding is that the bridegroom is the Son of Man, is Jesus. It's not the Jesus I know. I thought you were going to interrupt me by now, Bonnie. We had a conversation this morning and we laughed about the time when I preached in Markham. And at one point in this sermon, I had apparently said something in a way that was clearly going to be misunderstood and maybe misleading. And I didn't know that I had said that, and we can't remember what it is, thanks be to God. But all of a sudden I see Bonnie get up and walk towards me, and I knew from the look on her face that this is unusual, but here she comes. And she stepped into the pulpit and she tapped me on the shoulder, says, "I'll take it from here." And then she pointed to where she had been seating and suggested I take my place. Sisters and brothers, we can look out for each other that way. We can have each other's backs. It was a very special moment, and apparently the day when Chuck got saved by his wife. Jesus never claims to be the bridegroom in this story. He's telling a story about a context, about a wedding party, and about the kinds of things that will happen to us, even us who are a part of the kingdom of heaven. And the point is, prepare yourself, be ready, be awake, be attentive, look around you. Are there other ways that this story might be told that highlight other aspects of the kingdom? How about this one? A parable of the collaboration and compassion. The kingdom of heaven is like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were suspicious. 5 of them were trusting. The 5 suspicious ones are so called because they suspected the bridegroom would be late, yet again, as was his habit, and took extra oil for their lamps. But the trusting ones took their lamps without extra oil. They trusted that the bridegroom would arrive at the appointed time. It was a wedding after all. Turns out the bridegroom was indeed delayed. Who knows why? All of them became drowsy and fell asleep. Finally, at midnight, there was a shout, "Look, here comes the bridegroom. Come out, let's meet him." So all 10 bridesmaids got up, trimmed their lamps. The trusting ones said to the ones who had suspected something like this would happen, "Could we please have some of your oil? Our lamps are going out." And the ones with the oil said, "If all we do is share our oil with you, all our lamps might go out." And the 10 bridesmaids collaborated and sat together and wondered, what can we do? And they decided to keep 2, they divided up the oil, and then to keep 2 or 3 lamps lit while blowing the others out, to conserve the oil. And so some were detailed to watch for the bridegroom, others were detailed with the important task of making sure that the breezes and the winds wouldn't blow out the few lamps that they had chosen to keep lit. When the bridegroom finally came, they all relit their lamps. and all was well. So that's what they did. All was indeed well. Collaborate, therefore, and share what you've been given. Show compassion and creativity, for this is what the kingdom of heaven is all about. Well, surely this parable doesn't tell the whole story about the kingdom either. But it shows an important point, and I think the kind of effort that we have made as a congregation and need to do more of, I suppose. Collaborate. Be creative. Show compassion. If you have oil, you have oil to share. As I was thinking of this, I could imagine one of the virgins saying to the other, "Wow, wasn't that fun to figure this out together? How pleasant and good it is that we figured that out together." Well, so we have the first parable as found in Matthew, and then you had this one just told, and here's a third one. A parable of courage and persistence. The kingdom of heaven is like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 remembered that the bridegroom is one who is often late for things, so they brought extra oil. The other 5 had no such thoughts and brought no extra oil. The bridegroom was so late in showing up that they all got terribly tired and fell asleep. At midnight, there was a shout, "Look, here is the bridegroom, come out and meet him." And then the bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The ones who hadn't thought of bringing extra oils asked if they could have some of those who had. But faced with the ungracious response from those who had extra oil, they headed to town to see if they could buy some, even at this late hour. While they were gone, the bridegroom arrived. The 5 bridesmaids present joined the bridegroom and went inside, closing the door behind them. When the other 5 returned with their replenished supply of oil, they knocked on the door, trusting that they would be allowed to join the feast, and instead they heard, "Go away, I don't know you." But hear this. Without any delay or any hesitation, the 5 called back with all their might, "But we know you!" They cried, "We know you! We know you! We know you to be loving, welcoming, and kind. We even remember you assuring us that if we would knock, the door would be opened. We know you, and we know that you know us. So please open the door, and we would be honored if you would allow us to add our light to the light that has already gathered." And having heard them, the bridegroom awakened to his center. The bridegroom came to his senses, if you will. And now, having been reminded of who he was by these persistent and courageous bridesmaids, he flung the door wide open and welcomed them to the feast, saying, "Your diligence, your persistence, your courage has guaranteed you a place at the table." And so they were welcomed, and the feast was now complete. This too is the kingdom of heaven. Just a few suggested takeaways from today's 3 parables, all of which are meant to be faithful to the teachings of the ways of Jesus. Parable is found in Matthew. You've heard it. I've repeated this a few times. Keep awake, stay attentive, take inventory. You never know when anything and everything will be required of you. That said, please don't hear me say that there's no need for self-care. This stay awake, stay alert. There are times to sleep. Don't forget to do what Jesus did, who took rests even at strange times, who went off by himself. Still, remaining alive to what's going on is crucially important. Parable number 2, be compassionate, kind, collaborative, responsive. It's the kind of living that results in deep joy and a lasting sense of fulfillment. It's truly the stuff of the kingdom. Parable 3, be persistent, be bold, knock again, don't stop knocking. When you face a closed door, knock and holler if you have to. Yell out loud, I know you're in there and I'm not leaving until you open the door. And should you hear the words, truly I tell you I don't know you, offer your emphatic and immediate, but I know you. I know you to be compassionate. I know you to be determined to welcome even the least of us. I know you to be discerning of people's sincerity. I know you to be kind, not mean. I know you. I know that you know me. I'm hearing it in my head. Sister, don't you stop knocking. Sister, don't you stop knocking. Sister, don't you stop knocking till the door opens to you. And when you boldly speak your words, you might just hear this response. Actually, I'm confident that you'll hear these words. With the door not just ajar, but flung wide open, you will hear, come in. Your diligence, your persistence has opened the door. Your faith has gained you entrance. Thanks be to God. Amen.